Hello, ambitious besties. We are back. It is your girl, Amber Lewis, and I am super excited for our conversation today with Rob Monson. So, we've had a lot of conversation around ambition, everything from how do you juxtapose that with relationships to how do you think about the intersection of your purpose and what God has for you and all of these things. And when I think about who I would love for you to get to know and have on your board of directors or within your tribe, I try to be really thoughtful about those individuals. And it's really important to me to make sure that these people that I bring in front of you are trusted. I want you to listen to them. Hopefully, you follow them and engage with them because I think that they really can make the journey of life that much easier for you. And so when I met Rob, we actually met through a mutual friend. And when I talk about someone who initially and first came off as a safe space, and I did not know this man from anyone else. And I say, a lot of times that people come into our lives, I think, for a purpose. And we talk about it's for a season or it's for a lifetime or for all of those things. And although we met through a mutual friend, my hope is that it's for a lifetime because he came into my life when I think I needed a voice of discernment that I couldn't find within myself, but also a voice of kindness. And that is a juxtaposition that I think we're all really lucky to be able to have. And that's how he's shown up to me. And why do I think that you should listen? Why do I think you should lean in and be engaged with him? Is because even outside of the fact that, anybody who loves God is good in my book. Additionally to that, I think that the words that he shares through all of his platforms really have a purpose, especially in, again, that journey of life. So no matter where you are in that journey, I think you can take it. You can take the meat and leave the bones, as they say, right? And you can apply it into where you are. And I think that it actually is going to make, again, that journey that much better. So I am grateful and humbled that he has graced us with his presence today to talk about a few things that I think are really big when we think about ambition. But I'm going to turn it over to Rob because I can't do justice, I think, for who he is. So I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. So first of all, Rob, thank you for being here with your new ambitious besties.
Hey, thank you for having me. I am excited to be here with you. I enjoy conversations with you offline. So, hey, I can have it online as well. Let's see, my resume. No, that's literally not how I lead at all. But, I think when people ask me, like, who are you? The first things that come to mind are one, I'm from Chicago. If you know, you know. And both the positive and the negatives that come with that. But I am evolving, I'm growing. But I am a man from Chicago. I am an unapologetic, soft Black man. And that is really important to me that people understand that that's my goal, that that's my ambition. I don't always reach there. Again, because I'm from Chicago.
Journey is at Chicago, but we won't worry.
Yeah, I am trying. So I'm a soft Black man. And yeah, I'm one of 7 children. My family is important to me. My friends are important to me. Those whom I love, who I call chosen family, they're an important part of my life. And yes, I'm a PhD student. Yes, I'm a writer and a musician and a lot of other tangential things. I host 2 podcasts, 3 Black Men, and another one called Black Coffee and Theology. Okay. But yeah, that's me. That's just a touch of me.
So I actually didn't know you said 1 of 7. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. So I go to, and maybe that's the why I have an affinity to you. My mom's the second oldest of 8.
Mm.
And to understand, I think, the dynamics of family, especially when you have a large family like that, and understand how you have to show up, I think, and sometimes that gentleness, and you say what resonates with me is like a soft Black man. Number one, I think that's phenomenal to even feel that you can share that, because I
Mhm.
think holistically, when we think about Black men, and not even just men, right? Just Black men, right? We don't grant the space for softness and
Right.
care and kindness. And it's a a paradigm shift, I think, for a lot of people to see it that way. And I love the fact that that's what you share. And I think that's how you show up. You can be soft, but that doesn't mean you're a pushover, right?
Now say that. Yes.
Yeah, right?
People hear soft, and I
Yeah.
think then they're confused when I show up with rage, and they're like, "Wait," but I am rageful. I'm
Mhm.
super defensive of my friends and my loved ones. You will see a different side of me, but that is not antithetical to softness
Yeah.
to me. It's proof of my softness. And then two, I love that you called attention to Black men.
Yeah.
um, the reason why I started on this journey towards softness was because growing up, the last thing you want to be called as a Black man is soft.
Soft.
Like that is like that is some fighting words.
Yeah.
And but I noticed in all the men that I grew up around, there was a softness behind the scenes,
Mhm.
but the world did not give space for Black men to be that way, right? And so
Mhm.
you, so I've loved building a bridge to something that I think we all deserve. I
Mhm.
don't want to resist my whole life. I don't want to march my whole life. I don't want to fight my whole life. I want to be soft. I want to be free. That's what I want for all of us, right? So that from that place is how I do the work that I do, the theology that I do, the writing that I do. It's I want to create a world where, hey, I don't want to be hard. I don't want to be, I want to be ambitious. I don't want to be a boss to the point where, yo, I want to lay down and take this cape off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the both and that a
Mhm.
lot of times I talk about, especially with our ambitious bestie. I think, as ambitious people who are high performing, high producing, whatever that is, we feel like, um, something has to give. And we talk a lot about you can have both and it's just like, what's the priority at that time?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so when you talk about being able to take the cape off, one of the biggest, um, I think, mental changes that we have to do is understand, like, as they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. But
Yes.
we feel like we can continue to go and we're giving to those. And then we just burn out at the end of the day. And then we're not good to anybody. So to be able to hear you say that, but I think it also does look different for Black men,
Mhm.
specifically when you think about taking off the cape or
Mhm.
pouring from an empty cup. It's obviously an experience that I don't have as a Black woman. Having a relationship, a very good relationship with my father, I can see it from that side. And then obviously having a relationship with men like yourself, I
Mhm.
can see it. But I do think that's something that we take for granted, the idea that, when you go into the world, you automatically are public enemy number one, right? And then you want to have that safe space, but the world doesn't allow you to have that. So you have to have that armor on, and that has to be tiring.
Yeah, and I think because we don't have that space out in the world,
Mhm.
and to be honest, we don't create it with one another. Even though I do know amazing Black men,
Mhm.
I have brothers. I have brothers not related brothers, and there
Ah,
are there are good Black men, but
mhm.
I think because we don't find that out in the world, I think that's why you find so many angry Black men, and I think that
Mhm.
that's why we take out our frustration on Black women, who are not our enemies, who are not the ones that we should be fighting, but we feel like, oh, we're not getting out here, so we're gonna try and carve it out and like force it, not realizing that Our sisters want to,
Yeah.
they want to be in a soft space with us too.
Right.
And I just think of this conversation between the poet Niki Giovanni and James Baldwin. And there's a famous sit down that they had early in their time together where she said, essentially, like, you fake it with everybody else, but then you come home to me and I catch hell. And she said, I want you to fake it with me. Like, I want you to be soft with me, essentially, is what she's reaching for. Like, you're smiling, you're shaking hands with all these people out here. Fake it with me. So, yeah.
And I think that I do like how you kind of bring up that relationship between the two, especially, I think it looks different. Again, I go back to ambition when you have a Black woman and a Black man who are both ambitious, but you have to show up in the world in a different way, right? And it looks different. I think that, when we talk about softness and things like that, me being a corporate girly, although I'm an entrepreneur, I have to show up in corporate different, right, than my counterparts. I have to show up in corporate different than even my Black male counterparts. And I think that I try to carve out space for softness, specifically for Black women in corporate. But what I know is it'll eat you alive. And because of that,
it will. That's the gag.
Right. And so it's not allowable. And it does look different. And so I think that, again, we get into intersectionality, even when it comes to ambition itself. It's going to look different for myself, being a Black woman in corporate America than one of my friends that are a white woman in corporate America, right? Yeah. We just have different experiences. But going back to the softness, I think about even Black men in corporate America and how you have to show up in those spaces because, you can't make any mistakes, right? You can't make the same mistake as your counterpart or what that looks like, or just all of those things that I think it comes with, we can get into a rabbit hole, but the microaggressions and, the biases and, all of those things. And then you have two ambitious people and then you get home. You come home to each other, right? And you're both tired and you're both weary and you want to have this soft space. But to your point, and the perfect example is, basically your partner catches hell because they are their closest person and they do actually understand, like they can empathize. It's not 100%, but they can empathize to it. But because they're there, they catch that hell and we don't allow soft space for either in that relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I think, how I show up, I'm a little different. I think I'm old too, right? So I'm older.
He's not old.
I just, say that to these knees, okay? But like, I think, I love how you said it'll eat you alive. Yeah. Pursuing ambition in a false way can eat you alive because the reality that, yes, I want to be ambitious. Yes, I have goals that drive me, but I also have to be honest and say, this corporate life is not meant, they're not my friends when we leave here. It will eat you alive. And so to that end, yes, I do have to create softness even in the workplace, because what I realize is at the end of the day, y'all gonna get these microaggressions anyway. So all of the like respectability politics we play at work, the boss, like that we play at work, especially as a Black male, I'm supposed to be rude. I'm supposed to be arrogant. I'm supposed to like fight to get in there. I'm gonna just do my work. Like, I'm excellent in my work, but I actually refuse to play that game because no matter what I do, you're still going to disrespect my intelligence. So I have to operate at a higher frequency, knowing whom I am and to whom I belong to, right? And so no matter how much I'm getting a PhD, y'all still going to disrespect me in the workplace. Regardless, y'all still going to think I don't know how to do something. And so trying to prove to you that I can do it, is exhausting, right? And so I have to have something else that tethers me. And that, to the start of the show is like my loved ones showing up for those whom I love. That is the anchor that allows me to show up soft in the workplace and at home.
So can we unpack that a little bit, going back to showing up for those love and the relation to ambition, like in your mind's eye, what does that phrase actually mean to you?
Yeah, I think, so I will say how ambition was taught to me as a Black man was like, no holds barred, don't let anyone get in your way, climb the ladder, work twice as hard, don't take days off, come in sick, don't take your vacation days, don't take PTO. That's what ambition looked like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, that's not me anymore. But I was in that school of thought. But after years of dedicating myself to that, I realized I'm not happy. And what I had to evolve into is like, no, at the end of the day, what matters is the smile on my loved one's face when I text them, hey, I love you, I'm thinking about you. I do that to all my friends all throughout the day, like male or female. Like I will say, hey, I'm proud of you. Hey, I'm thinking about you. That showing up for me to those relationships means more than any accolade that I could get at a job. Yeah. Like I'm a 4.0 student, but seeing the smile on my friend's face when I send them a book that they were thinking about, or a book that I think about when I think about them. A lot of my friends are like, we don't want any more books. If I think about you for 20 seconds, I'm sending you the book. And that means that is going to mean the most to me. And so I channel my ambition that way.
Yeah.
And I'm ambitious about showing up correctly there in those relationships. And that's what I judge myself on. But that also allows me not to burn out in the workplace, because I realize this is secondary. Like I want to do well here, but only in as much that I can pour into the ones that I love. So that's what I would say.
So you have me thinking, because I actually didn't think about the phrase in that way, but now like everything is going crazy in my mind. My neurons are firing.
Yeah.
But I think back to an example, being in corporate, and I've been in project management, program management for a while, and I actually got sick. And this was probably like, I don't know. Now, Lord, everything's blurring together, but maybe it was like 6 or 7 years ago. I had gotten really, really, really sick. And I didn't say anything to anyone. And I just kept showing up to work, like regardless, showing up, giving 110%, the fear of, if you tell them that you need to take off time, how does that look on your end of year? How does that look in your bonus? We know it looks different as people of color, period. In the
You're right. Especially Black women, like unfortunately.
Black women. And then also still having that thread of ambition, which is a phenomenal thing to have because you're purpose driven, but at the same time, by being purpose driven, you drive yourself down. And that's what I found. I found that I wasn't realizing, like, I have to have belief and I have to have faith that it's going to be okay. And I need to be honest with myself, with my capacity, going back to showing up for people that we love. So I'm working, full time. I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm sick, right? And feeling like hell, and have been sick for like a year straight. Like it was a really long time, and still trying to show up for family and do all those things and not ask for any help and be self-sufficient and all of those things. And then I got to a point probably over the last year where I realized, do I like what I do? Yes. Is it, as my father says, like all the time, like anything you do is worth doing well, right? Going back to God's principle, it's how you show up, right? And so even though maybe this isn't where I want to be for the rest of my life, I have to show up in that way, but I have to show up to the capacity that I'm able to.
Bingo.
And right.
Yeah.
And I was doing myself and the people around me a disservice because I wasn't showing up in the way that I would expect them to show up for me. And I had
Wow.
to self reflect and do better there. So, as I'm hearing your definition of it, it does resonate a lot with me.
Yeah, I think what's sad about the ways that we push ourselves in the world in general is
Mm.
what definition of well are we going under, right? Like there's this ambiguous definition. And I was thinking as you were talking, like one of the people that I love is myself. Like, and so you did all that. And whatever bonus you got that year, I can tell you it wasn't worth what you like.
It
like,
wasn't.
like it
I can
wasn't.
show you're right.
Without my
Yeah.
peeping the
Yeah.
contract, it wasn't worth that. But you did all of that, putting all of
Mhm.
that, your
Yeah.
mind, body, soul on the line. You sick, trying to get in there, and for what?
For what?
Like, not only did you not honor yourself, which is the first person you love.
Mhm.
Like, I love God, but I love me. Um, but then you did a disservice to the people who love you because you really couldn't show up
Yep.
and they couldn't show up for you. So like everybody lost in that little, what I don't want to belittle it, like whatever that end of the year was, they
Yeah.
they didn't know what you put in that year.
Right.
Like nice project you did last week. Oh,
Yeah.
in October you did. You're like,
Right.
child, I was
Here's your hand clap. Okay, and next. And
oh. Yeah. And that I think that sucks, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's a point of reflection for any of us. And
Mhm.
as we learn, right, and grow, I'm not the Amber today that I was that 7 years ago. The
Mhm.
choices that I would have made then, I would never make now. I give myself grace because that's the space that I was in, and it's how I felt that I had to show up.
Yeah.
Um, but as I think about who I am, and sometimes we go through burnouts, or sometimes we just are like, I am depleted, and you take a step back and you do that self-reflection, you realize, okay, if this was to happen again, I
Mhm.
am not going to relearn that lesson. So I am
Yeah.
going to act accordingly to that. And I think what I also learned in showing up for those that we love, I had a therapist at the time. This was a couple years ago or a year ago or so. And we were just kind of talking about allowing people to show up for you.
Yes.
Right. And that's a part of showing up for those that we love. It's hand in hand. And I would always say, like, I have it, like, I'm a fight or flight, but I'm like the fight person. So I'm like, what's my plan? How do I execute? What's the date? What's the time? I got this. Like, if I feel like I can be in control, I feel like I'm good. And then to give a little bit of that control away, like if Rob calls me and he's like, hey, Amber, like I can help you here. I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
I think I can do it myself, as I'm like, everything's burning, a dumpster fire around me, but I'm like, I got it. It's my dumpster fire. And what she taught me was, you continuously block other people's blessings because you're not
Mhm.
allowing them to bless you. And that was a wake up call for me. And after that, I said, okay, I think there's boundaries. I think we allow those that we can trust.
Yeah. Now, yes. Woo. Yeah.
Right? But those that we can trust to show up. And there's individuals that we would pick within that space.
Mhm.
But that was a learning curve there for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much too, right? The Robert I was 7 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
hell, 2 years ago. But like I learned a lot of the messages from my father, who didn't have space to be a soft black man, and so he was rigid. He did work twice as hard. My father worked two jobs. He would get off from one in the afternoon and then go to another one all night, and so he would only sleep a few hours a day. And
Mhm.
so it's burned in my mind that he would go to work with pneumonia. He would go. I remember one time my father was in a horrible accident because he worked in construction.
Okay.
and had half of his arm ripped off, like half of the like skin all the way ripped off. He didn't go to the hospital. He just put bandages on it, which is
Going.
insane. Like, and then went to work. I mean, he lost so much blood. And that taught me at a young age that my needs were irrelevant to showing up. Excellent. You know, we talked about that definition of well. So well looked like my father was a definition of well. Like a real man works hard regardless of what befalls him. And that hurt me through most of my life because I would show up sick. I remember showing up sick with pneumonia. I showed up sick for like 2 years on a job. Did I get it? I didn't even get a bonus.
You really were into that. Yeah.
And so I think it hurt me because that was my definition that my father gave to me.
Yeah.
And I think if he knew what it would do to me, I think that he would have taught me something different. But he didn't know what he didn't know, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, going back to showing up for those that we love and the definition looking different for everyone, I think that's a perfect example because, you know, obviously, like I don't have any kids, right? And you don't have any kids, but if we were to have children, I think we would think about things in a different way than our parents. Our parents knew what they knew and they did what they did. And as we always say, you know, this is their first time on the earth. So they're learning with us.
Yeah.
But the point that you made of, you know, the understanding that if he knew how you were actually taking it in, he probably would have shown something different. And I think when it comes to showing up for those we love, we want to show that like we're going to be there regardless. And, you know, we're going to work hard and all these things. But going back to that soft space, especially with ambition, I think we have to show the next generation that you can be ambitious and you can take a nap, right? You can be ambitious and you can take a sick day because you have to show up for the people that you love. And you're not able to do that if now, you know, you have some horrible, you know, infection because you didn't go to the doctor because you just kept going and things like that. So all those things mean something.
Yeah, like, and then I think about our, you know, we like what we do. Our jobs will give you a severance package in a second. And never think a thing after that, like done great work. And so whom am I laboring for? Right? It's for those who I love. And I think, you know, you said a bit ago, like blocking our loved ones' blessings. I also think that we don't allow them when we act like we have everything together, when we handle everything, we don't really know each other then.
Because you're not showing up as the authentic side of yourself.
Yeah, I don't know you. Of course you can. Yeah, you can do everything. Of course. Like Black girl magic is a thing. Whatever, you know, like, you know, but like, if I don't know that you ever cry at night, if I don't ever know that, like, yes, you could get it for yourself, but how about you let some people in?
Yeah.
Hey, babe, I know you can get to that part where you're like, I can cook dinner tonight, but what about, hey, Chipotle will be waiting for you at the house. We don't have to wait for a romantic partner for that. We can cultivate that with our siblings, with our close friends. I have close friends who they will proactively say, hey, you've had a hard week. Chinese food is on the way, right? They don't even ask me because they know I'm hard-headed sometimes. So they're like, I just assume you don't have anything cooked already, right? And so we have to let people in, not just for the blessing part, but to actually be known. Because then we complain about like, nobody loves me. Nobody.
Right. But you didn't allow them to.
Boom.
You didn't allow them to. And then, you know, we're angry on the inside or we're hurt. And we could have mitigated it from the beginning with just a simple conversation.
Yeah, I'm treating you like what you said you are, which is you don't have any needs. You're not vulnerable. And so I was even thinking about that piece with ambition with vulnerability, that makes sustainability, right? Like ambition is one
Mhm.
part of it, but vulnerability mixed with that ambition, we can cook with gas.
Mhm.